I have the absolute pleasure today of speaking to Heather Parady. Heather's zone of genius is consistency. It is a topic that I am passionate about, so I am looking forward to this conversation with Heather on consistency. Heather is the host of Unconventional Leaders podcast. She helps mission-driven leaders spread their messages online through content marketing. So Heather, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Annette. It's so cool to be here with you.
Why don't you introduce a little bit about what you do and what your message is around consistency and around the podcasting in general?
Sure. So I'm really passionate about content in general. I think it's an opportunity that's easily overlooked because it's literally at our fingertips. But anyone who is interested in long-term impact, I think it's something that we can't ignore because the scalability of it, not even from being able to grow your business monetarily, but also if you're in the game of impacting lives, there's no better way, I don't think, to impact lives than through media. And we have a free way to create media and get it in the hands of people all over the world. And so the journey started for me several years ago when I was in school and I was growing a business and really discovered how easy it was to market if I knew the right things to do online. So much to a point that I ended up just turning down my career that I worked so hard for, went to grad school and got my license and all that stuff, and then ended up turning down job offers to go full-time online because I was just sold on this idea of making an impact through the internet. And so we started a show. We're about 3 years into it. That's completely changed my life. And then also, from that, I work with other content marketers to spread their messages.
Awesome, Heather. And tell us about how you primarily spread your message and what that looks like and what people can kind of learn from what you do in terms of how you spread your message.
Sure. So I think focusing on one thing starting off is the most important thing. And that's where people get really, really tripped up. I can't tell you how, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, how many calls you have with people. And they're like, I want to do this and I want to do this and I can do that. And there's so many options that we get overwhelmed with everything because, you can start a podcast and strip that video and put it on YouTube. Then you can do micro content and put it on Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok and blah, blah, blah. And what happens is we get so overwhelmed with everything that we don't end up doing anything, or we do it really well for a couple of weeks. And then we're just like, screw it, I can't do this. So I always recommend picking what you enjoy the most. What is the platform that you spend your spare time on and you actually enjoy creating? Like, Heather, should I be on Instagram? Should I be on this? There is no should in this. What do you enjoy? Because it's going to take time and effort and you might as well enjoy it. So what is the platform you spend the most time on? And what way of communication comes natural to you? Are you a speaker? Are you a writer? Are you someone who communicates through picture? Think about what comes natural to you. Again, not what you should do, and figure out how to create content on that one platform with that one thing. And so if you love Instagram, you and I were just chatting that you and I kind of struggle on Instagram a little bit, but let's say you love Instagram and you love taking really awesome pictures and you're a writer and a kind of poet. I mean, go all in with that. Like, don't underestimate the power of one platform and one intention and one focus. And so I would start there. That's what I did with the show is I was like, okay, I'm really good at talking. Obviously, I'm extroverted. I like communicating with people. So let's just focus on building this show. From there, I've been able to expand as I've gotten comfortable and build out a system where I can start, repurposing some of that content, recreating things on different platforms that make sense. But again, it's hard being a visionary, big picture people. We want to do all the things. But if you are talking about consistency, we've got to start small and build from there.
Yeah, absolutely, Heather. I completely agree. And I think, I've been there. We spoke as well before about how I have started a podcast 2 other times to this one. And one reason primarily why those failed is because I confused consistency with relentlessness. I thought that when someone said to me, you need to be consistent, I thought, oh my goodness, that means I need to do this every day and I need to go all in and I need to do, as you say, like my distribution and my micro content, and I need to have it all working and it needs to be now. Forgetting where I was at that point in my business and that I was all doing it myself at that point in time. And you can't do all of that yourself and run a business and service your clients and all those things. But also feeling like I had to produce content at scale en masse on every platform every single day. And that made me suddenly go, oh, I can't do any of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And you know, I've fallen into the same trap. I've done done really well, quote, whatever that means, and then just like completely burn myself out. And every time I catch myself, and usually it's from a place of fear. And so I think creating from a place of life and abundance is really important, and checking ourselves on that. Am I doing this out of fear and panic that I'm going to miss out on something? Or am I doing this because this is a natural life extension of my brand and my business and what I want to do?
Yeah, I really love that too. I have to say that I have found my content creation at the moment significantly easier because I am at the moment doing daily live streams all around the economy and business at the moment, and what's happening, of course, with we're recording this during coronavirus as well. And I have found that bit of my content creation has been so much easier because I am so interested in it, I am so engaged in it, and actually therefore producing content around it is just so much simpler for me, and it's simpler to be consistent as well. So I really like that message too, and I love the message as well of focusing on that key platform or that key medium that is actually going to be the one for you, because like you say, you want to be in this for the long haul in terms of content production. We don't want to go all in, burn ourselves out, and then nothing at all, because apart from anything else, that confuses our audience as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we want to, when we are producing content, make sure that our audience are seeing us regularly, whatever that consistency is, whether that's weekly or daily or something in between. But our audience understanding that that's how we're producing content, and then looking forward to our next installment of what we're sharing as well, right?
Well, and then that's building trust, because if I'm like, okay, Annette, I'm going to be besties with you. We're going to do a Tuesday bestie coffee. We're get the world's back to normal, and we're going to go to a coffee shop and spend 30 minutes together every single Tuesday. Like in real life, if I ghosted you several Tuesdays, you would be like, this Heather girl is like, oh, I can't trust her. Our friendship would. And so it's the same thing online. Again, we don't have to show up every single day all the time. But what we can do is commit to one small thing and treat people online the same way we would treat them in person.
Absolutely. I think that's a really strong message for a lot of people, because I think sometimes it's difficult to equate that, isn't it, with actually you're speaking to people. So, when you do a live or you do a podcast episode or whatever that might be, and you see that you have 2 viewers or 2 listeners, and that sometimes can put people off doing it again and being consistent and getting to the place where they have 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever that is. But remembering that those 2 people are still people. They're still individuals who actually want to hear what you say. And I think that can be really important in helping with our consistency as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I'm sure you've experienced this too with content marketers, especially people going in like, okay, I'm gonna start a Twitter, I'm gonna start a podcast, all this stuff. It's a long game, and the return on investment for that is not going to be immediate. It's going to take a very long time. So you have to go into it with the mindset of service, of like, I'm building a long-term brand, that this is going to take a while. For years, I had Pat Flynn. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
I love him. Amazing. Smart Passive Income podcast. Y'all need to check it out. But he gave this analogy of, if you look, let's say you put out a podcast and 30 people listen to it. You're like, oh my God, 30 people listen to this podcast. He said, if 30 people were in your living room to come hear you speak, you would be so honored. You're like, wow. But having a digital number on there, it takes the humanity out of it, or we don't, unless there's a bunch of zeros, we don't think it's important. But we're not going to be able to grow until we value each one of those individuals, and celebrate them. You know what I mean? And again, that takes a long-term mindset, which a lot of people aren't willing to go there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think as well, it's difficult when we hear the things like, oh, so and so goes viral, etc., and that can make us forget about those numbers at the same time. You are here today because I found you on TikTok, and of course on TikTok there is the whole, anything can go viral on there. Even the most bizarre videos suddenly get 10,000 viewers. And I think that really skews people's view of the individual that's watching. And, if you then go onto another platform and you go, well, how did this get 10,000 or 100,000 or a million views on one channel and 6 on another? Like, what happens there? And part of that is, of course, creating content that is applicable to the channel itself and what the channel likes. Part of that is, the dreaded word for all marketers, the algorithm that exists on the platform, etc. But understanding that just because on one platform you have 6 people and another you have 100,000 people, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the people on the 100,000 that you want to reach either.
100%. And I see the back end of a lot of businesses. Specifically, I work with a lot of podcasts, and some of the ones that you would see on social and assume that they were not doing so well are killing it in their business because their engagement and their conversion is so high because they're reaching the right audience. And then I've seen businesses where you look on their social and you're like, oh man, they must be, knocking it dead, and they're not making any money. Their engagement is super low. And so we've got to start tracking the right metrics as content creators. Yes, reach is super important. However, if no one's taking action and we're not really building real human connection online, then literally there's 0 point to it.
Yeah.
Outside of our egos feeling a little bit good.
Yeah, exactly. And I am a massive fan of data tracking as well. Being an accountant, data is a big thing for me. But I completely agree. It's not actually the pure viewer numbers that actually count in this, or listener numbers, depending on what medium you're using.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what advice would you have to somebody who is thinking, okay, I need to start being more consistent with my content. I need to do this. How do I start this? How do I begin? What do I need? What do I need to do? What do I need to buy? What do I need? All these questions that people suddenly have when they're like, okay, I'm committed to consistent content production. What's the next step?
Yeah. So we talked about, picking the right platform you enjoy and that makes sense for your audience, one thing, and then figuring out the way to express your message. So we talked about that. I think another really important piece to this, and this is from Gary Vaynerchuk. I love this concept of documenting versus creating. And it's kind of an old school mindset. And I know it was just a couple of years ago, but we're already in the old school phase of it, of going to Canva and making quote cards and stuff like that and thinking that people are just going to love it.
Yes.
I mean, they might. However, we've got to stop obsessing, a whole hour on one image in the perfect copy and start realizing that people just want to see the real you. They want to see the real brand. They want to see the behind the scenes. Like, they're going to be so much more interested in this story that I'm about to post with me and you, just like, what's up, the behind the scenes on this show, because they feel they're a part of my life. Than if I, went to Canva and put your headshot and my headshot and like, blah, blah, blah. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens with is, first, that human connection piece is taken out because it just seems too plastic, and people are getting sick of that, I think, online. We've had enough of that. We've had the past 10 years of people just, influencer, here's my green smoothie, and everything's posed perfect. Now we want to see realness. But then also, from a content perspective, from a creator's viewpoint, it takes a lot of pressure off of us because we don't have to sit here and micromanage everything. We can just create from like more of a documenting viewpoint and not worry about it so much. And that's what's so beautiful about stories right now. I can see a little bit more intention going into a post that's going to last, but stories, which most people are consuming more, and LinkedIn just came out with stories. People are kind of consuming things super, super fast. If you think about it from a productivity standpoint and longevity, why spend so much time on one piece of content that people are going to see for a second? So let go of a little bit of perfection, which I know everybody loves when I say that. Like, let go of it a little bit.
Yeah.
People are going to like you with a little more imperfect that you are. And
Mm.
that's what we're going for. We're going for, again, that engagement. So I think that's important for consistency. And then if you know you want to start something, commit to a certain amount of time doing it. So when I started the podcast, I didn't know what I was doing, and I probably should have set a smaller goal because I was like, oh, this sounds easy. But I decided to do 100 episodes.
Nice.
And giving myself permission to quit it after that if I don't like it. Because sometimes you commit to something and you're really pumped about it, but then you get involved in it and it's a lot harder and you hate it. And
Yeah.
that's okay. Like, we shouldn't be afraid. Entrepreneurship is change. It's shifting and adjusting. But also, too, give yourself enough time to get through the slumps of stuff. So make a goal that's long enough to get through the honeymoon stage and actually, persevere, but also to give yourself, time to shift and adjust and quit if you absolutely hate it. Just give yourself a break in general. Just show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely get it. So what do you say to the people who say, well, document, don't create is a great message? Yes, I believe in that. Yes, I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk speak about it. It sounds wonderful. However, my life is quite boring. I sit at a computer all day, or, something similar we were just chatting about before. What do people in that position do? Because, yes, Gary Vee has D-Rock following him around with the video camera. His life looks quite fun. Overall, and also he's speaking to clients and things who are okay with them being filmed and being put out onto social media. What if you are having calls with people that are confidential, that's about information that you are unable to then share on social? How do you go about documenting what your day, your week, your month looks like when you have a job that you sit at a computer all day and you're on confidential calls on Zoom all day?
Yep. This is such a fantastic question, because this is one I have struggled with so much. Because what you're seeing right here, for those of you who are listening, I'm sitting at a desk. There's a panel wall behind me. Oh, there's some dead flowers in the corner. In my microphone. And I literally, you could take a screenshot right here, and in about 8 hours, you're going to see the exact same thing. I won't move outside of going getting food and coffee. And I sit here all day long, talk to clients. It's the most boring life in the world. Everybody's like, oh, entrepreneurship. I'm like, entrepreneurship is boring most of the time.
Yeah. Well, the situation I described is exactly my day every day, which is why I was saying
and it's super lonely. That's another thing that it's an interesting conversation, is figuring out how to, anyway, that's another conversation. But here's a couple of ideas. Number one, I've been trying very hard to allow a creative outlet outside of this.
Nice.
Because I think that there's part of my brain that kind of shuts off, where I go into this robotic thing. And again, making time for anything else is not the easiest message in the world. But I've made it a priority in my life, because I'm like, okay, for me to be able to create content that really connects with people, I have got to get out of this entrepreneur zone and get into a world of creativity. So here's some practical things. Like, I started taking acting classes once a week. And I know that's crazy, has nothing to do with what I'm doing, but it gets me around different people, and just I've noticed that I'm starting to think a little bit more creatively and different and outside of the box. Going outside and allowing space to, like, read a fiction book. Introducing creativity into your life, no matter what that is so important, and it is working on your business, because it expands our very narrow mind right now. So that's a kind of a big picture thing. Some real tactical things. We're naturally nosy as human beings. So I am so curious about what the rest of your office looks like. I see this orange thing right there, and then I'm wondering, I'm like, what's over on this side,
Yeah, that's true.
So even changing your angles, like, you're like, oh, this is just, my office. I see it every day. I don't see it. I don't know what that is. And so even just creating content from different angles, it could be the same room, same thing. People don't see what you see, and it just sparks their creativity. Quotes clients say. That's a really cool thing. So like, for instance, I had 2 people in one day say the exact same thing to me. They're like, I just want to do so many things that I can't focus in on the one. So that's a fantastic content piece, because that was spoken to me. And I can say like, hey, I've heard 2 times today, this, and create some dialogue around it. I can just even write on a Post-it note, like clarity, you know what I mean? And then write some really good copy about that. So don't overcomplicate things, pull things from your day and pull it into your content. And again, it may seem super boring to you, but again, people want to know like all the things. Like, I wonder what your computer looks like, Annette. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you shop at and what you do. Like, I want to know about you. You know what I mean? So don't underestimate all of that. And also too, I get really passionate about this. Feedback from your audience. If you're seeing that people are really resonating with certain things that you do, like do more of that. For instance, so I go running almost every day. And before I was a mental health therapist.
Oh, nice.
And so part of my mental health journey is anxiety. Like, I have massive anxiety, being a type A driven person and big dreams. I'm like deep breathing all the time because I get overwhelmed. So I started going running.
Nice.
When I was thinking about the link between running and mental health, and normally when I feel anxiety, I go out on a run. So
Me too.
I started
get it.
taking pictures of my shoes and hashtagging mental health. I have so many DMs every time that I do that. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for sharing. I've been doing it for about a year now. And that's feedback saying, okay, people really want to hear more about that side of you too, even though that has nothing to do with my career.
And this was, I was gonna ask exactly this actually, was how do you feel about the balancing up of what we would generally deem to be personal information when it comes to our content and business information, when we don't have, a separate Facebook page for both? We're just doing everything in the one, or we've got one Instagram account, and therefore should we only be speaking about business stuff on there? Should we be speaking about, the rest of our life on there? What does that look like for you, and what do you recommend for people when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I think that's such a great question. I've chosen, the easy answer would be have 2 separate accounts. For me, I have so much going on that I can't. Like, I have to have one. It's hard enough growing one platform.
It is.
So that's what I've chosen. So the easy way would be having 2 separate. I think looking at your goals is really important. So are my goals, for me, I want to have a more personal brand and build the show. And so that's going to require me to bring in a little bit more of my life. Now, if you don't care about a personal brand and you want, to reach a certain level, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you have to make decisions based off of your long-term goals of what makes sense. So keep in mind what I'm about to say. I'm speaking from the perspective of I want to reach as many people as I can and have a personal brand. I include a lot about Heather the person, but I always try to put it within the context, and I goof up on this a lot. I'm trying to check myself on it, as who is this in service of? Is this in service of me just getting to express myself and having fun, or is this in service of helping someone else? So, me hashtagging mental health in my running shoes, I'm bringing awareness to people that there's another piece to mental health outside of just therapy and medication, that you can, exercise just stuff like that. When I write a post, am I doing this to brag, or am I doing this to inspire somebody else or help someone else? So, Seth Godin, I love him. He talks about marketing is empathy at its core. And so just checking ourselves and saying, okay, yes, bring in my personal life, but figure out how to still serve through that, I think is important.
Yeah, and not doing it from a place of bragging, but doing it from a place of service.
Yeah.
Nice.
And, too, I'm a parent. And that's one thing I've been thinking a lot about too, is figuring out, I don't want to, and this is so messy, and I even hesitate bringing this up because parents get crazy. But not using my kids as a prop.
Yeah, I don't post pictures of my children on social media at all, because from my perspective, I believe that they should have the choice whether they are their images are online, and that's just my own personal view. And I know that other people differ on that, but that is the view that that we hold as a family.
And I respect you so much for that, because I've had so many people say like, oh, well, why don't you have, because my oldest daughter is super funny, but she's 7, like, oh, why don't you have her on the show and all that? And I know I would get a lot of downloads from it. I know that I would, but then I'm using my child as a prop, and she doesn't, this internet space is around for, if anything else, it's just going to increase and smush together into more of our quote regular lives. Whether you like it or not, that's what's going to happen. And our kids, the stuff that we create and put online is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
And so that's something I'm navigating through right now, because I want to share my family because I love my family, but two, I also want to respect them. So it's a super gray area for me right now. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's a real challenging one. And, like you say, I know that if I put a picture of my kids, they are 3 and 5, so they're pretty cute looking. I know that I would get a lot of likes. Yep. That just would happen. And so, it's balancing up again. What we spoke about before was, well, yes, those kind of vanity matrix of, well, the picture might get a lot of likes, but is that even your target person you want to speak to who would give you a lot of likes?
Exactly.
Or not? Or is it just your mum? And in which case you can just send your mum a picture anyway. So it's that type of thing too.
Exactly. 100% agree. This would take a long time, and I have not done it, but somebody suggested this to me the other day and I thought it was a good idea. But again, the time it would take on Facebook specifically, because there's like, you have family and you want to like share, and I live out of state from all my family. We don't live near anyone. Creating a list on Facebook of like your family and your close peers, and so you can still share those photos, but just select your family to see it, as opposed to those several thousand friends, quote that you don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that's an option for people as well. If they have, one platform that they're using for everything, potentially you can on Facebook use the settings of who sees your stuff, and then you can change it up that way. Good. Heather, thank you so much for coming on. I do appreciate it. I think we've had a lovely, lovely discussion. I think it has been very, very useful for everyone who is listening as well. So thank you for hopping on. How can people connect with you online? How can they find out more about you? Where should they go?
Sure. So Unconventional Leaders is the show, and then at Heather Parady, just about everywhere except for Snapchat, because I just could not get into that at all. Like, I'm still confused by that platform. So,
Me too. Me too.
Connect with anyone and just hear your story.
Lovely. I have to reiterate, I am also very confused by Snapchat. It's something I also have tried.
We would get along so well in real life.
I think
You're
so.
on TikTok. You don't like Snapchat.
I know. It's so good, isn't it? It's all good. Well, thank you again, Heather. Of course, we'll put the links in the show notes to anyone who's listening so that they can connect directly with Heather as well. I recommend that you subscribe to her podcast, of course, as well, and follow her on social media platforms because she puts out some great content. So thank you again, Heather, for joining us. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Annette.